Hey friends, it is officially fall. It's my favorite time of year, especially in the kitchen, and today I want to share two of my favorite cozy tofu recipes. They're both creamy, saucy, super flavorful, indulgent, and I cannot wait to make them all season long, and I hope you love them too. Big thank you to Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. Plus, if you want to stick around to the end of the video, we have a special announcement. First up, we're making pan-fried tofu in a creamy sun-dried tomato basil sauce, also known as Me Tofu. And here's everything you'll need for this recipe. I like to use the super firm, high-protein tofu for this dish. If you want to just use extra firm, I would recommend pressing it ahead of time, just so that it's easier to brown it in the pan. You can cut your tofu into really any shape you like. You can do fillets, cubes, tear it up into bite-sized pieces. I like to cut mine into these cute little triangles. They're about a ½ inch thick, and then you're gonna go ahead and throw your tofu into a bowl, season it with a big pinch of salt and a couple cracks of black pepper, and then you're gonna sprinkle them with some all-purpose flour and give them a toss to coat. Then heat up a tablespoon or two of olive oil over medium-high heat, and when the oil is nice and hot and shimmering, add in those dredged tofu pieces. Pan fry your tofu pieces for a few minutes per side. Usually takes me 4 to 6 minutes per side. You're just looking for this beautiful golden brown crust. And if you need to, feel free to reduce the heat a little. Sometimes that loose flour in the pan can get a little dark and smoky, so just keep an eye on it. Once the tofu is looking nice and golden brown, you'll remove it from the pan. You can just pop it on a plate or a cookie sheet and set it aside till later. And now we're gonna build our creamy sun-dried tomato sauce in the same pan. Start by adding a tablespoon or two of non-dairy butter, and into that we're gonna add some finely minced shallots. Shallots are a little bit milder and sweeter than regular onions. They also have like a little bit of a garlicky flavor. Regular onions will work just fine too. I've also diced up several cloves of garlic, and you can feel free to add as much or as little garlic as you like. We like to make everything spicy in this house. I really love Calabrian chili paste. You can also just use regular chili pepper flakes, or if you don't like spice, you can skip them altogether. Once the shallots are translucent and smelling incredible, add in your sun-dried tomatoes all chopped up, along with some dried oregano and thyme. I personally like to use the oil-packed sun-dried tomatoes, and if you're using the oil-packed ones, you can cook with the oil from the jar. It has some extra flavor in there. Sun-dried tomatoes also come dried, so if you're using those, you'll want to rehydrate them in some boiling water for about 10 minutes to soften them up before you use them in the recipe. You can also add in a few tablespoons of tomato paste. This is optional. If you want to keep it a more classic cream sauce, go ahead and skip it, but sometimes it's nice to amp up the tomato flavor. After sauteing everything for another 2 to 3 minutes, now we'll pour in our broth and our cashew cream. I really like to use a chicken style bouillon in this recipe because it really amps up the savory flavor. I've been loving this bouillon paste from Zoop. I also really like these bouillon cubes. I always have these in my pantry. If you don't have either of these, you can just use regular vegetable broth. You might just need to add a little bit of extra salt because these bouillons tend to be a little bit on the salty side. My go-to for creamy, savory sauces is cashews because they're so creamy and neutral in flavor. You can use any store-bought non-dairy cream you want. You can also use a can of full-fat coconut milk. If you don't mind like a slightly coconutty flavor, I think it's actually really delicious in this dish. I'm also adding in my shredded vegan parm. I'm gonna stir everything together to melt the cheese so we have a nice cohesive sauce. I really love the vegan parm by either Violife or Follow Your Heart. You can also just use a couple tablespoons of nutritional yeast to add that cheesy flavor. And now you can adjust the texture of your sauce by adding extra water or broth, or let it simmer gently for an extra minute or two if you want it to be thicker. Okay, let's take our pan-fried tofu from before, add it into the sauce, and give it a good stir to coat. I like to let it simmer for another minute or two just to make sure the tofu warms through, and then the final step is to top with lots of fresh basil. This Me Tofu is incredible, served with pasta, rice, or a side of bread for dipping. Today I boiled up some pasta and seasoned it simply with vegan butter, some pepper flakes, some parsley, and garlic. If you want, you can also double the sauce ingredients for this recipe so you can have extra for your pasta. It is so incredible.
All right, Me Tofu, which has become a classic in our house. We've had this many times over the years and it's always delicious. Really feels like fall to me. So savory and comforting. I do like the addition of tomato paste too. It does give it more of like a vodka sauce kind of taste. I like that. Leave a comment. Let us know what your favorite pasta shape is. Every pasta shape is the best pasta shape.
Bucatini.
Yeah, you're a bucatini girl.
It's so good. It tastes like pizza.
It does taste like pizza.
This Tuscan vibe with the basil and the sun-dried tomatoes and the Parmesan and the garlic. It's just good on everything. We also have a Marry Me chickpea soup, but I especially love the tofu because it's just so satisfying. I'd like to give a big thank you to Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. Thrive Market is an online membership-based grocery store that makes shopping stress-free and offers savings on every single order. So we got a puppy about 2 weeks ago, and if you've had a puppy, you'll know how much time and attention they require. It has been so hard lately to sneak out to the grocery store to get everything we need. So I've really been relying on Thrive Market to get all of my grocery shopping done. I can shop from the comfort of my couch, everything gets delivered straight to my door, and it has really been helping to stay on our routine with work, the puppy, keeping our house tidy, and all that good stuff. There are a few things I feel like I'm literally always running out of, things like coconut milk, veggie broth, oats, nut butter, and I really like using Thrive Market to keep my pantry stocked with all my essentials. Everything's super affordable, especially if you're someone who tends to favor organic products, and you can sort by lifestyle, by value. So if you're vegan or gluten-free, you can filter everything so you don't have to sift through all of the ingredient lists. I also love reading their customer reviews and ratings because I hate taking a gamble on a new product and wasting money. And they also have a whole pet section, so now we can get the best treats for our new puppy Leela. A yearly membership costs $60. It gets you access to everything on Thrive Market's website, and I always make back the cost of the membership in savings within the first 2 to 3 orders, and if you don't make back the cost of the membership, Thrive Market will credit you the difference. Plus, for every membership purchased, Thrive Market donates a membership to a family in need, which is amazing. If you would like to try out Thrive Market for yourself, you can get 30% off your first order right now, plus a free gift by signing up on thrivemarket.com/Sarah's Vegan Kitchen. All of that information will be in the description box. Thank you to Thrive Market, and now let's get back to our tofu recipes. Next up, we're making butter tofu, a plant-based version of the iconic Indian butter chicken. It's creamy, cozy, and packed with flavor, and I'm going to show you how to get that restaurant-level flavor at home. This recipe has 2 parts. So first we're going to marinate our tofu in a spicy yogurt marinade, and then the second part is to make the actual butter sauce. Let's start out by marinating our tofu. Here's everything you'll need for that. For this recipe, I always like to use 2 blocks of extra firm tofu, 2 blocks because I always want leftovers. We'll also add a blend of spices including ground cumin, Kashmiri chili powder, garam masala, turmeric, and salt. We'll also be adding plenty of fresh garlic and ginger, some lemon juice, a little bit of olive oil, and yogurt. This is my favorite brand of vegan yogurt to use. It's by Forager. Also really love the Kulina coconut yogurt. You can use any non-dairy yogurt, just make sure it's unsweetened and unflavored, not vanilla. Start out by draining your blocks of tofu and pressing them for at least 15 minutes. We don't want the extra moisture to water down the marinade. You can use a clean kitchen towel, but a tofu press is definitely a game changer. I use mine multiple times a week. Then you're going to cut or tear the tofu into bite-sized pieces. I like to score the surface of my tofu lightly with a knife first. It helps me get nice, equally sized pieces when I'm tearing. For the marinade, we'll mix together our non-dairy yogurt, all of our lovely spices and salt, our fresh garlic, and I'm using a garlic press to really crush it, some grated ginger, then squeeze in some fresh lemon juice, and finish with a drizzle of oil and combine everything together. Toss the tofu in the marinade till it's well coated, getting it in all of those nooks and crannies. Then let it marinate in the fridge for at least 30 minutes, but preferably a few hours or even overnight. I usually prep mine the day before and let it hang out in the fridge overnight. Now let's move on to the Indian butter sauce. Here's everything you'll need for that. We'll start out with plenty of fresh aromatics. First off, a finely diced onion. There's fresh garlic and ginger in the marinade, but we're also going to mince up even more for the sauce, along with 1 or 2 green chilies of choice for spice. You can make this dish as spicy as you want it to be. I'm just using 1 jalapeno pepper. Remove the seeds and the ribs if you want to make it milder. And if you want to make it spicier, you can use extra jalapenos or you can use a spicier pepper like a serrano and leave the seeds in. You can also add cayenne pepper if you want even more heat. Also, Eric wants you to know that he grew this jalapeno. Heat up a few tablespoons of oil or vegan butter in a skillet over medium-high heat and add in all those fresh aromatics. You're going to saute those for about 10 to 12 minutes. And during this time, you might start to see some color building up on the bottom of your pan. That's okay. You can just add a splash of water as often as needed to deglaze. We're looking for our onions to turn a nice golden brown color. This is really going to bring out their natural sweetness. Once we have that color developed, we're going to add in a few tablespoons of tomato paste along with some more spices. Here we have ground cumin, ground coriander, more Kashmiri chili powder, and salt. Add those into the pan and stir to coat the aromatics. Then you'll want to keep stirring and let those toast for a few minutes till the tomato paste gets a little bit darker and less vibrant in color. And again, you can use as many splashes of water as you need to keep the pan from drying out. Next, we'll add 1 can of crushed tomatoes and a can's worth of water. Important note, the quality of your tomatoes really matters in this dish. The flavor is very front and center. I really like Muti and Cento brand, but just check the ingredients. Try to find one that does not have citric acid as an additive because it's just gonna give you like a really tart flavor. So the fewer ingredients, the better. This one is just tomatoes and salt. Once that starts boiling, reduce the heat to low, cover the pan, and let it simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes to cook out some of the acidity of the tomatoes. In the meantime, let's revisit our marinated tofu. My preferred way to cook the tofu is in a 425-degree oven on a lightly greased baking sheet. I spread out the pieces in one layer and let them bake for about 15 minutes. Then I move the pan up to the top rack and I broil it on high for another 8 to 10 minutes to give the tofu a light char. Just make sure to keep a close eye on it under the broiler because it can go from lightly charred to burnt pretty quickly. You can also cook the tofu on the stove if you need a faster option or even on the grill. I'll have instructions for both methods in my blog post. After the sauce has had a chance to simmer, you have the option of blending it. I think it's delicious both ways, but personally, I like to blend mine. I just think it's a little more similar to what you get at a restaurant. I think my immersion blender does a fine job, but if you want it perfectly velvety smooth, you will probably want to use a high-speed blender. Add the tomato sauce back into your pan along with a non-dairy cream of choice. I like to use full-fat coconut milk. You can also use cashew cream, you can use a store-bought vegan cream. I just really love the flavor of coconut milk in Indian dishes. Optionally, you can add some sugar, and you're gonna season to taste with salt and stir in a few tablespoons of vegan butter. Make sure not to skimp on these ingredients if you really want it to taste super indulgent like takeout. Add in your cooked tofu, give it a good stir to coat it in our creamy butter sauce, and let it simmer for a few minutes to warm everything through. As an optional finishing touch, I like to garnish with a handful of kasuri methi and some fresh chopped cilantro. If you're not familiar with kasuri methi, this is also known as fenugreek leaves, and you can find these at your local Indian market or order them online. You don't have to use them in this dish, but definitely adds another layer of authenticity, so I highly recommend. I personally make my butter tofu on the saucier side because I love making homemade naan to dip in that extra sauce. And by the way, if you want to whip yourself up a batch of homemade naan, I also have a tried and true recipe for that on my blog. And of course, the meal isn't complete without a side of fluffy basmati rice. This dish is so flavorful and addictive, and it requires a little extra work, but I think it's well worth it. Pardon any squeaky toy noises you might hear in the background or just like general chaos. Leela's teething. But it's actually the following day. By the time I finished filming and cooking yesterday, I was just starving. So I didn't film a taste test. So I'm gonna heat up some leftovers. I made a whole new batch of naan today. You guys, this might be the best batch I've ever made. And this is one of those dishes that is honestly just as good, if not better, the following day. Leftover butter tofu. I'm so excited to eat this. Indian restaurants, they tend to be pretty vegan friendly. They always have like 2 or 3 options, but it's really hard to find a plant-based equivalent to butter chicken. So for me, it's definitely worth the effort to make it at home. I love the texture of the baked and then broiled tofu. It really gets like this nice chew. I cannot describe how obsessed with this sauce I am. I think I want to make a huge batch of it and just freeze it so I can have it whenever I want to. I feel like it would be good on anything.
It's my turn for the butter tofu taste test. I grew up eating Indian food in New York. It was one of our family's favorite takeout cuisines. And I have actually never had real butter chicken. It's just not something I ever ordered as a kid. So when Sarah developed this recipe, I just wasn't really familiar with it. And I have to say, it is a winner. It's so full of flavor and spices, obviously because it's Indian-inspired food. It just has such a smooth taste to it. I mean, I love the acidity and the heat of tikka masala or vindaloo, but this is just like a nice kind of balancing, different kind of dish. I mean, of course I make it spicy and usually put like habanero flakes on it, but still really the best way to describe it is just like nice and smooth and so warm and cozy. Then of course the naan, which you can't find vegan literally anywhere, so it is a blessing to have vegan naan to dip in sauce.
That wraps up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, you can find all the recipes on my blog linked in the description. Thanks again to Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. Remember, you can sign up and get 30% off your first order plus a free gift at thrivemarket.com/Sarah's Vegan Kitchen. Subscribe for more plant-based recipes, and I'll see you very soon. Okay, I wanted to do a little update for anyone who's curious or just really loves puppies. We adopted a puppy about 2 weeks and a day ago. We got her from a Northern Colorado rescue, all aboard Animal Rescue, who has been amazing. She was about 12, 13 weeks old when we got her, was the estimate. They found her in New Mexico. They brought her to Colorado, and she's very cute, very sweet. Her name at the rescue was Lily. She was with a foster for a couple weeks, and we changed her name to Leela. Kind of similar to Lily, but a little different.
We wanted to keep it kind of similar, but we didn't really think Lily fit her.
Because she's a little rapscallion.
She has a mischievous kind of vibe, I feel.
Yeah.
So we went from Lily, we played with Leila, and then we went with Leela because it just feels, I don't know, it just feels the most playful. And she's just a playful pooch. Like when we met her at the adoption event, she came right up to us and she was playful. She's also very polite. Like we think she had a really good foster because she can sit. She hasn't had a single accident in the house. She waits by the door. She's a really good puppy. So she's very clearly part German Shepherd just because of everything about how she looks, except for the fact that she's really small and dainty still.
For a German Shepherd, yeah.
So we think she must be mixed with something smaller. I mean, Australian cattle dogs are extremely prevalent out west, so that's a possibility. But we did a
Embark DNA test,
which we hear are very accurate. So they got it. We're waiting for the results now, and we'll update you on Instagram or in the next video.
So we'd been wanting to adopt a dog for a while, but originally our lease was no pets. But we've lived here for about 2 years now, and we've developed some rapport with the landlords, I would say. So before we renewed our lease for a 3rd year, we asked them if they would maybe consider letting us adopt a pet. And they said, yes, you can get a dog, no cats.
So once we signed our new lease and they approved of a dog, we were like, let's just go on the local shelters, whatever. And like, we'll find an adoption event, we'll go and just look. And then we got there and she was just so tiny and sweet. And everyone at the shelter said, Lily is our favorite puppy here. Like, we're so glad that someone's gonna take her. She was supposed to get adopted the week prior, but something happened with the family and they weren't allowed to adopt her. So she stayed for an extra week. And then she was there when we wanted her. So we scooped her up. So yeah, that's the story of how we adopted Leela. You'll see her on Instagram and in future videos.
She's starting Puppy Academy tomorrow.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
She's a good girl. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to our little personal bit here at the end. And we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah. Bye.